friends, Kim from Stamping Imperfection. Thank you for joining me. I'm here with a video for Scrappy Tales Crafts, and I decided that I really wanted to use this Oopsie Daisy stamp set. I know I've made a couple of videos using this stamp set already. I've shown you lots of different ways you can use this, but I was just in the mood for flowers and bees and a little mixed media today. So I'm starting out with a stencil from my stash, and it's a kind of a geometric stencil. It felt almost like a lattice stencil, and I've got a piece of white cardstock that's cut at 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and I put a little temporary adhesive underneath that and added I just put the stencil down on top, and I'm holding it in place with a piece of washi tape. I'm using some Nuvo Glacier Paste, and I believe the color of this is called Frostbite. I'm just adding a little bit of that with my palette knife, and I'm lifting it up because I did this like a hinge. So I'll put this panel aside to dry. I'm just going to put it on my scoreboard and put it aside because that needs time to dry. It usually needs about an hour. And right away I went in and cleaned off my my stencil and my palette knife. I cleaned that off in the kitchen sink and rinsed out the kitchen sink. And now I'm just going to stamp everything. So I picked 2 of the floral images, and then I decided I want to use all of those bees. So I'm going to stamp all 5 of the bees. I probably won't use all 5, but I want to have the choice of them. And then I'll have the 2 extra bees in my little apple bowl that I have on my desk, and that's where I keep all the extra die cuts and sentiments and things, and I'll have a couple extras for when I'm making something else. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of coloring. Now, one of the things I like about this is not a lot of coloring. Like, the bees don't take very much to color. You just need to put some yellow in, and those flowers you could actually leave white. But even though I want them to be mostly white, I will put I want some color in the center. I want to put some color on the stems and leaves, and I want to put a little color on the petals so that they don't look like, flat on the page. I just want to give them a little dimension. So this is one of my favorite yellow combinations. This is YR27, and you can see I'm just flicking the tip of that where the centers of the flowers are, and then I move on to YR24 and just flick a little bit more, and then I pulled out Y23 and filled it in. I also had Y21 there. I could have left some space to put that light color in. I like that combination. That's a really nice combination. So now I'm using Y19, and I'm just flicking out from the center of each petal from what I've already colored in, where the artist has put those lines in, and that will just help give it a little bit of dimension. I'm using Y18 and just going out a little farther, and I'm kind of heavy-handed when I watercolor and Copic color, so I go out farther than I would like to. And I used Y13 as my last color from the center there, and I really was trying to make them mostly white. I considered using grays also because adding a little gray here would have made them look really white. So I'm just adding a little bit, and I'm going to have a lot of white space on them. My last color is Y11. I'm just flicking a little bit of that from the tip in toward the center, so you can still see lots of white space there. And I'm just turning my paper as I go around my stem and finishing all of those. So I've got a little color there, and I could have added a little more dimension by outlining the petals also. So I'm going to use those same yellows on the bees, and I pulled out some greens. I have G16. This is sort of a blue-green. I think it's called malachite, and I really like this color. I'm just adding a little bit in the places where I think there'll be shadows, like at the base of the petals and just along parts of the stem. Then I used G14 and just, added to what I already had there. I'm just flicking out a little bit more. I like this color. It's nice and bright. It brightens everything up. And then I pulled out G12, I think this is, and just filled in the rest of it. So as those colors dry, they'll blend together beautifully. And I always like this color combination. It's become one of my new faves here. So I used Y19 on the left and right edge of each of those white stripes, and then I used Y13 to fill it in. I just used 2 colors on that to fill in each one of those yellow stripes on the bees. And then I took the Y11 and just colored in the wings. My plan was to use my brother's Scan and Cut, but I can't get it to work because the mat has gotten really old. So I need to actually get a new mat. So I'm going to end up fussy cutting all these because I did not purchase the coordinating dies. So they do have Scrappy Tales does have coordinating dies to go along with this. And I will put the links for this stamp set and the coordinating dies below, because you know what a time saver it is to get the coordinating dies. And if my brother's Scan and Cut was working, that would actually take longer for me to use than it would the dies. But so I did my fussy cutting. I ended up using my tiny little scissors and fussy cutting out most of the stuff. I decided to only use 3 of the bees, so those other 2 bees are going to go in my apple bowl. And while I was tossing them in the apple bowl, I did manage to find a sentiment that I already had created that says "just for you." I just needed to trim it down. So I've got the flowers and 3 of the bees all ready to go. And fussy cutting can be kind of relaxing. Like, I used to do fussy cutting all of the time, but I really like the little Tim Holtz. He's got those little like micro serrated scissors and they're like, I don't know whether they're Teflon coated or they're coated with something. So, they are non-stick and I really like them. I actually like the micro serrated thing. I know some people don't like it, but I think they cut so nicely and it makes it easy to do. So I'm just trimming down that sentiment that I just found in my bowl. And of course I'm going to save those little pieces because there are sentiments small enough to go on that. So I'm really getting cheap. I'm telling you, super cheap. That's what retirement has done to me. Not having a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks has made me a bit more frugal with scraps than I used to be. I also have this piece of bright yellow in my stash. It's almost orange yellow. And I cut it down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to attach that to the front of my card base with some double-sided tape. And the card base is cut at 4 1/4 by 11. I scored and folded that at 5 1/2. And I'm sorry you can't see what I'm doing here. I'm just putting the tape on that card base, and now I'm just peeling off the backing, and I'll stick that down on top of that yellow mat. And then I'll put when it's dry, I'll put the stenciled panel on. I love stencils. I really have found that, I'm trying to use things in my stash before I buy new things. And this is not quite dry, so I'm being very careful here, but I wanted to test out what I was going to do. But I do find that I'm pulling out stencils a lot. I feel like stencils are a really cost-conscious thing to have in your stash because there's just so much you can do with them. I just used, this Glacier Paste, which is the same as embossing paste or modeling paste or texture paste. There's lots of names for it. Same thing. And I just happened to buy some colored one with pretty sparkle. So I am sort of like twisting these together. I trimmed off some of the leaves from from the larger of the two there, and I tipped the one sideways, and I put some foam dots on the back. I put some foam dots on the sentiment and on the back of the bees, so now I'll just fuss around and place the bees. And I wanted to put, I have those bright yellow foam or Nuvo crystal drops I was going to put on there, but I had to wait a long time for that embossing paste to dry, so I wasn't patient enough to wait for Nuvo drops to dry. So I will have the links for everything below. I would love it if you gave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel while you're here. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Have a wonderful day. You will find the links to the stamp set and die set below.